Hey everyone, Romeo here, a fellow Spanish language learner. In this video, I want to give you some insight into one of the most debated topics in the language learning space. Should you study grammar? Honestly, I don't even know why this is a debate. For some reason, in the language learning world, this always turns into a yes or no argument. You either study grammar or never touch grammar. The people on the no side usually imagine grammar study like this: a dry table of conjugations, a random verb like to talk, and a page where all you have to do is conjugate it in isolation. Hablar, hablo, hablas, habla. No sentences, no context, no meaning. If that's what grammar study is, then yes, that's not very useful. The second argument is more philosophical. Billions of people learn their native language without studying grammar, so why would you? Now, that sounds pretty convincing until you look at what actually happens. It's true, we didn't sit down with grammar charts when we were 2 years old, but we were corrected constantly, every single day. If a child says, she cat, the parent responds, no, say, my cat. If the child says, that my cat, they're corrected again. They don't see grammar tables, but they are getting live structural feedback every waking moment for years. That is grammar study. It's just unconscious and externally corrected. Now, fast forward to adulthood. You're learning Spanish probably alone. There's no parent correcting you 24/7. There's no constant feedback loop. So, what replaces that? Grammar. But not grammar in a vacuum, not memorizing charts for fun. You use grammar for pattern recognition. You use grammar as structured feedback. Grammar as, oh, that's why I say hable and not hablaba here. When done correctly, grammar compresses years of trial and error into months of clarity. It doesn't replace exposure. It doesn't replace conversation. It doesn't replace listening. It accelerates them. Let me give you a simple example. If you don't understand grammar, you might think all the different conjugations of a verb are completely different words. Hablo, hablé, hablaba, hablaré, hablaría. That can look like 5 unrelated words. Multiply that across dozens of verbs and it can feel overwhelming. But once you understand grammar, you don't see 5 words. You see one word, hablar, moving through time. Same core meaning, just different tenses. Grammar doesn't multiply complexity, it organizes it. It simplifies what looks chaotic. Yes, you have to put in the work up front, but long term, it reduces cognitive load. And here's another angle people don't consider. Grammar gives you confidence. If you're only learning by listening and mirroring, there's a weakness there. You might sound fluent, but you don't actually know why something is correct. You're guessing based on memory, and that works until it doesn't. I once had a conversation with a guy who learned English in prison. He was a native Spanish speaker. He learned entirely by listening to the people around him. And when he got out, people kept telling him that he sounded like Snoop Dogg. Now, there's nothing wrong with dialects or slang, but his input environment shaped his output. And when he tried to enter the job market, that specific way of speaking limited his opportunities. He eventually had to relearn structure in a more formal setting so he could adjust how he spoke depending on context. That's the key point. If you only mirror what you hear, your language is limited to your input environment. Grammar gives you control. It allows you to shift registers. It allows you to know what's neutral, what's formal, and what's slang. It gives you confidence that what you're saying is structurally sound, not just something you've memorized. And then there's the online comment section, or even people you talk to. You'll see people that say, my friend learned Spanish without ever studying grammar, or I learned my second language without grammar. Okay, but what's missing? Time. How long did it take? And what does learned actually mean? Basic conversation or full professional proficiency? Without that information, the claim doesn't tell you much, but people read it as proof. They use it to justify avoiding structure. Time matters. Proficiency level matters. Context matters. Yes, you can learn a language without formally studying grammar, but if you do, you're likely choosing a slower path and one with less control. And when you say you want to learn naturally like you did as a child, you're also, consciously or not, choosing the timeline of a child. 4 years, 5 years, maybe even more. And even then, listen to how a 5-year-old speaks. That should not be your goal as an adult. As adults, we have cognitive tools children don't. We can understand systems, we can see patterns, we can compress years of trial and error into months of clarity. Why would we want to ignore that advantage? So, no, you shouldn't study grammar as disconnected charts with no meaning. But yes, you should study structure. Yes, you should understand what's happening when words change. And yes, you should use grammar as a feedback system when you don't have a parent correcting you anymore. The debate only exists because people are arguing against bad grammar study. Good grammar study isn't memorizing tables, it's building control. Now, if language learning is just a hobby, then sure, what do you have to lose? Without grammar study, you may eventually learn to speak the language at some point. But if your goal is to sound functional, clear, and competent in a reasonable time frame, grammar isn't optional, it's leverage. If you want to see the system I recommend to make grammar practical and not boring, watch this video next. Anyway, I'm curious, which side of the debate do you currently fall on? Yes to grammar study? No? Drop a quick yes or no in the comments. I'll love to see your take. If this video gave you something to think about, give the video a like. And as always, until the next video, good luck on building more functional, usable Spanish. Peace.